basically, the scope of this presentation is what we refer to internally at Caterpillar as Project 21. Doesn't mean that the previous 20 projects failed miserably, but instead it's really about how can we bring our marketing initiatives to the 21st century, and namely the digital era. For more than 80 years now, Caterpillar has been manufacturing superior products to serve the needs of very demanding customers to be more efficient in their operations. And we are what you would say pretty much a very product-focused company with rather little space for marketing, or we've been that way for years. And the reason for that is because we operate through a network of dealers which is combined bigger than us in terms of size, revenues, and footprint. And they kind of own that local touch point with the customers. And we probably a little bit too much, we probably abdicated a little bit too much of the marketing to them because we're not able to reach those customers. So traditionally, what we've been doing was very much supply the dealers with a lot of printed materials. That was before the digital era. A lot of printed materials, spec sheets, catalogs, promotion campaigns, global advertising framework. We've been pretty good at managing the brand over the years. But we were supplying all this to the dealers, and then we would rely on dealers to pass that to the market, whatever shape or form they would use. We couldn't have control over 200 dealers around the world. What we were doing directly to the customers were customer events. That's I was glad that Chuck brought that up because we're still very much in what we call a contact sport. And obviously we had a website, which is, we still have it, which is what it is, but it's still there. Now with the digital era, the game is changing. We now have the possibility to go and talk directly to customers. Obviously, we can engage in very strong PR campaigns, and we can have an immediate and very broad impact on the customer base. But dealers also address their customers through digital channels, and they expect us, the manufacturer, more and more to produce ready-to-use content for them to populate those different channels. The other aspect for that, for us as well, is we can now engage dialogue with the customers directly without relying so heavily on dealers, which, for all the good things that they bring to us, are acting as a filter sometimes between us and the customers in terms of messaging going back and forth. So, as every major force hitting an industry, all this digital revolution for us brings a lot of new challenges. The first thing is obviously the amount of content that we have to produce. If you take all the business units times all the different territories and cultural differences, times all the languages, times all the different channels that we have, the amount of content that we have to produce is just limitless. It's mind-blowing. So for us, having to choose and prioritize is the biggest challenge. Obviously, with the proliferation of all this content, you need to control consistency. And because we are communicating directly to customers now with certain messages, and dealers are doing so, how do we ensure consistency across all these messages going out to the market? The other challenge that we have is obviously the overall view of the marketing tactics that are used and how we dial, if you want. We have all these dials that we can play with, all these marketing tactics. What's the best balance? What's the best investment? But what's the best intensity and the best mix for the different messages and the different markets? That's something that we heavily rely on experts, like most of the time outside agencies, for us to tell us what's the best balance between all these tactics. The third challenge that we have is obviously from an organizational point of view, all this content that needs to be created through all these new channels calls for extended marketing budgets that generally we don't have. So we are facing the situation where we need to insource or outsource things, meaning that outsourcing probably will be done better, but will be more expensive. And insource, we still perceive that's cheaper, but we then face another issue, which is the competencies that we have in-house. In our traditional marketing teams, we lack the competencies that you guys can bring to the equation, and we know that, but for cost reasons, we either try to develop that internally or hire the people that bring those competencies from outside. But this is a recognized challenge internally in the marketing teams. Obviously, the other side of these challenges are all kinds of new opportunities for us. I would pick those three ones. Having multiple channels and proliferation of channels forces us to engage dialogue with the rest of the organization, so the other business units, but also our dealers on what they are doing, what we are doing, and how we can maximize our spend together. This is, from the outside, this sounds pretty obvious, but when you have a company of 150,000 people and another group of dealers of pretty much as many people, how do you communicate? How do you make sure that everything that you do in a given territory is aligned? The e-channels, I think the biggest opportunity of all the e-channels that are now available is the ability to put metrics on everything that we do, to measure all the efficiency that all the marketing campaigns that we're running, and in the end, make data-driven marketing decisions. And that's what have been lacking for years. When we do customer events, that's a fantastic tool. We know intuitively that it works, but we're not able to measure the impact. When we do marketing through the different e-channels, it's very easy to track customer behaviors, to understand who are the leads, who actually bought, who actually didn't buy, et cetera, and track it down into the dealer CRM systems. And the last one is probably the most challenging one, is the possibility to engage customers in two-way communications. But here again, the risk we run is how do we handle the volume of feedback that we get from customers? It's nice to have a Facebook page out there, but how do you deal with all the answers, all the questions in 20 different languages? How do you handle that? And how do you make sure that you open that door to the customers, tell them, talk to me, and you can actually answer them? So this is the challenges that we are facing right now. So it was a very synthetic view of some of the opportunities and challenges we face at Caterpillar. And I think now we are ready for the discussion.